You know, I mean, when you think about how people wake up in the morning, uh, it is remarkably similar to booting up a computer.
Oh, absolutely. It really is.
Right. Because some people are just, like a brand new machine. You press the power button, the screen flashes to life, and all systems are instantly go.
Yeah, they're just immediately ready to process whatever the day throws at them. It's kind of wild.
It is. But then, well, there is the rest of us. We are more like an older, overworked laptop.
Right. The kind where you press power and the internal fan just whirs defensively.
Exactly. The hard drive groans, the screen flickers, and you have to execute like multiple hard restarts just to load the basic operating system.
Yeah, way before you can even think about opening a single application.
And that cognitive lag, right? That universal friction of simply opening your eyes and attempting to become a functional human being, that is exactly what we are dissecting today.
We really are. And we are pulling from a fascinating source for this deep dive. It's a transcript from an English learning show called English Podcast One, specifically a session titled Rise and Shine, Navigating the Morning Routine.
But, and I want to make this clear to you listening, our mission today is not to just sit here and review grammar or basic vocabulary.
No, definitely not.
We are essentially using this seemingly casual language lesson as a Trojan horse. Buried inside this conversation between the two speakers are these deeply relatable, highly practical behavioral insights.
Yeah, insights about why waking up is a universal struggle, really.
Exactly. And we're going to unpack the specific architecture required to make our mornings fundamentally easier.
So to understand that architecture, we first have to look at the two contrasting personas presented in the source material. We have Amina, who embodies the highly energetic morning person, and then there's Ahmed.
Oh, man.
Right, Ahmed proudly wears the badge of the quintessential night owl. And their entire dynamic really illustrates this tension between manufactured discipline and our natural biological drive for comfort.
Yeah. And before we can figure out how to build a better routine, we need to examine these baseline personalities. Because, how you navigate those first few minutes out of sleep essentially dictates the trajectory of your entire day.
It absolutely does. And Ahmed sets the stage right out of the gate with this brutal confession. He says his brain absolutely does not start working until breakfast.
And he even jokes that sometimes, it doesn't work after breakfast either.
Which is so relatable. He is openly acknowledging that slow boot-up process. He just exists in a state of cognitive delay. But contrast that with Amina. She claims to wake up smiling, and she gets out of bed immediately after a single alarm sounds.
Which to Ahmed is insane. When he hears this, he is baffled. He literally describes her ability to get up immediately as a superpower.
A superpower, yeah. Which brings us to arguably the most poignant quote in the entire transcript. Amina admits that getting out of bed is difficult, especially when, and I love this, when your bed feels warmer than your future.
Wow. Yeah, when your bed feels warmer than your future. That is so good.
It sounds like a throwaway joke, but it perfectly encapsulates the psychological concept of present bias.
Present bias, right?
Yeah, in that fragile moment of waking up, the immediate tactile comfort of your heavy blankets completely outweighs the abstract perceived value of the day ahead.
Because the day ahead is just an idea at that point.
Exactly. If you don't have a compelling reason to exist in the future, meaning the rest of your day getting up becomes a monumental, almost painful task. And the source actually makes a very careful distinction in the vocabulary used to describe their physical states here. It contrasts being exhausted with simply being sleepy.
And those are entirely different physiological states. The text treats them almost as a diagnosis. Ahmed isn't just sleepy. Sleepy is a natural biological readiness for rest.
Great, you're just ready for bed.
But Ahmed is utterly exhausted. He's depleted. But, okay, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Ahmed claims he is a night owl. And we know chronotypes exist in sleep science, right? So are we sure Amina's ability to wake up is just discipline? Like, is Ahmed really just making an excuse, or is society unfairly biased against his natural biological rhythm?
Well, it's a really valid question. And while biological chronotypes are definitively real, the source text reveals how we tend to weaponize those labels.
Weaponize them? How so?
Well, Ahmed uses night owl as an identity. By adopting that specific label, he gives himself this built-in biological shield against his morning failures.
Oh, I see. It removes his agency.
Exactly. It's not his fault he can't get up, it's just his biology. Amina, however, doesn't rely on being some genetic anomaly. As the text reveals, her superpower is entirely constructed through highly structured habits.
So it is less about her DNA and much more about how she actively manages the friction.
Yes, that intense friction between immediate physical comfort and long-term obligation.
And when you lack that management, when you just surrender to the biological desire for comfort, you run straight into the inevitable morning failures that the text outlines next.
Yeah, things go off the rails incredibly fast for Ahmed.
They really do. I mean, his lack of structure is chaotic. He admits his relationship with his alarm clock is complicated, which is just a gentle way of saying it's entirely dysfunctional.
Because he confesses to hitting the snooze button a staggering 7 times.
7 times! Just think about the mechanics of that.
There's a lot of alarms.
Hitting the snooze button is essentially using a high-interest credit card to finance your sleep.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. You are buying 3 or 4 minutes of terrible, fragmented, low-quality sleep right now in the present moment. But you are going to pay massive, compounding interest on that debt later in the morning.
Yep, in the form of panic, elevated cortisol, rushing, high stress.
Exactly. You are borrowing against your future peace of mind for a tiny, fleeting illusion of comfort.
And the interest on that sleep debt is paid directly in cognitive impairment. Sleep scientists call it sleep inertia.
Sleep inertia, that's that groggy, disoriented feeling.
Yeah, that state where your brain hasn't fully cleared the neurochemicals of sleep yet. And the source illustrates this beautifully with some frankly absurd morning failures. Ahmed tells this story about waking up late, rushing frantically to get dressed, sprinting out the door, and actually arriving at work 20 minutes early.
He sounds like a win until
Until he realizes it was Saturday.
Oh, man. The ultimate tragedy of the unstructured morning, a massive spike of adrenaline totally wasted.
Completely wasted. But Amina has her own failure, which is maybe even more revealing about the brain's boot-up process. She admits that one morning she was so half asleep that she poured orange juice directly into her bowl of cereal.
Oh, gross. But it happened.
Right, we laugh at the visual, but look at the underlying mechanism there. The brain is running on pure, flawed autopilot. It is attempting to execute 2 routine scripts simultaneously.
Making cereal and pouring a drink.
Yes, and the wires cross because the prefrontal cortex, which is the decision-making center of the brain, is entirely offline.
So the text isn't just sharing funny anecdotes, it's actually demonstrating that a lack of a clear routine leaves our brains prone to highly irrational, just absurd errors.
Exactly, and it is no coincidence that the specific English idioms taught in this section of the source reflect that exact anxiety. The text highlights the phrases, I overslept, I'm running late, bright and early, and hit the snooze button.
And 3 out of those 4 expressions carry entirely negative, stressful connotations.
Because that is the language of an unstructured morning. When you don't manage the transition from asleep to awake properly, your default vocabulary becomes a series of apologies.
Right. I overslept. I'm running late. So sorry.
Yeah, you are constantly in a defensive posture against time itself.
Wow. And when we look at Amina pouring orange juice into her cereal, it reveals a critical vulnerability. Our brains simply cannot make rational decisions while we are booting up.
They just can't.
So how do we bypass that groggy decision-making process entirely? Well, this is where the source shifts from identifying the friction to mapping out the architecture of a solution. It starts by contrasting the very first physical actions Ahmed and Amina take upon opening their eyes.
Right. Amina states that she immediately drinks a glass of water and then makes her bed. And she notes that making the bed takes exactly 2 minutes.
2 minutes? That is an incredibly low barrier to entry.
It is. But Ahmed's reaction to this is deeply revealing. He admits his bed looks like a battlefield and that making it would be 2 very difficult minutes.
A battlefield, that word choice is so critical.
It really is. A battlefield implies chaos, struggle, and a mess left behind from a lack of control. By leaving his bed as a battlefield, Ahmed starts his day surrounded by visual evidence of his own disorganization.
Whereas Amina's 2 minutes of bed making represent immediate order.
Exactly. She establishes control over her environment the second her feet hit the floor.
And this stark contrast in control extends straight into their breakfast talk segment. So Ahmed's dream breakfast is described as this massive, labor-intensive feast. He wants pancakes, eggs, toast, fruit, and coffee.
And Amina immediately points out that this is enough food for an entire family.
Yeah. Meanwhile, her actual daily breakfast is stripped down to the absolute essentials: tea, eggs, and bread.
Because Ahmed's ideal morning is a fantasy. It requires a level of time and energy that his 7 snooze buttons have already stolen from him.
Right.
Amina's breakfast is grounded in reality. It is executable. Though, to be fair, The text does note they both admit to skipping breakfast altogether when they are in a hurry.
Which just proves that even structured people occasionally lose the battle against the clock.
Oh, for sure. We're all human.
But the core of how Amina wins that battle most days is hidden in the specific progression of vocabulary words the source teaches next. The text doesn't just define these words, it stacks them in a very deliberate order.
Yes, this is my favorite part.
So first is habit, defined as something you do regularly. Then routine, which is a series of actions done regularly. Then organized, meaning neat and planned. And finally, productive, which means getting useful things done.
It is not just a vocabulary list. It is literally the ladder of behavioral psychology.
The ladder of behavioral psychology. Break that down for us.
Well, you cannot reach the top rung of being productive without first establishing an organized baseline. You just can't. And you cannot be organized without a predictable routine to maintain that order.
Makes sense.
And you cannot build a routine without first mastering the atomic unit of a habit. It operates on a strict mechanism of causality. Drinking water is the habit.
Okay.
Stacking it with a 2-minute bed-making exercise creates the routine. That routine neutralizes the chaotic battlefield, resulting in organization. Only then is the brain free to be productive.
Wow, that is a brilliant way to look at it, which culminates in the specific 3-part challenge that Amina issues to Ahmed for the very next morning. It is essentially a masterclass in removing decision fatigue.
Yeah, let's go through her challenge.
Okay, so rule 1, wake up after the first alarm.
Right, because waking after the first alarm stops the compounding interest of the snooze button, and it prevents that sleep inertia we talked about.
Rule 2, drink water immediately.
Immediate hydration jumpstarts the physical body. It signals to the internal organs that the sleep cycle is officially over.
And rule 3, no phone for 30 minutes.
That third rule is the most vital.
Really? Why that phone?
Avoiding the phone protects the fragile morning brain from an instant jarring spike of dopamine and cortisol.
Yeah.
It keeps you from reacting to the world before you've even centered yourself.
So I want to ask you, the listener, thinking about your own morning today. If the rule was no phone for 30 minutes, would you have already failed before your feet even hit the floor? Because I know I would have.
I think most of us would have, honestly.
Yeah. And for Ahmed, the answer was a resounding yes. When she tells him no phone, his immediate reaction is to push back. He actually says, now you're asking too much.
Because the phone is a massive source of dopamine. And asking a tired brain to reject immediate pleasure is incredibly difficult.
And this introduces the final overriding concept taught in the text, which is discipline. The source defines it simply as doing things even when you don't feel like it.
Doing things even when you don't feel like it.
Yeah.
That definition is the philosophical engine of the entire discussion.
Because nobody feels like getting up.
Exactly. Amina's simple habits, the water, the bed, they are low-effort wins. They don't require massive amounts of physical energy, but they do require the discipline to execute them when, as she said, the bed feels warmer than the future.
Yeah.
By executing them anyway, she generates immediate forward momentum.
It's like writing the first few lines of clean code to ensure the operating system boots up smoothly. But, knowing you need discipline and actually implementing it are two entirely different realities.
Oh, completely different.
And the source material actually anticipates this gap. It wraps up by directly addressing a listener question from the text, which is, how can I wake up earlier?
It is the ultimate question for anyone trapped in Ahmed's cycle, really. And the rapid-fire solutions provided in the text are deliberately foundational.
What's the first one?
The first piece of advice Amina gives is to simply sleep earlier, which she literally calls simple but true.
Simple but true. I find the advice to sleep earlier so fascinating because it feels painfully obvious.
It really does.
Right. It is like telling someone who wants to save money that they just need to spend less. It is objectively, undeniably true, yet it is the one action chronic night owls will fiercely resist.
They hate hearing it.
They do. They will buy specialized sunlight alarm clocks. They will drink gallons of cold brew coffee. They'll blame the temperature of the room. They will engineer incredibly complex solutions to avoid simply putting their head on a pillow 1 hour earlier.
Yeah, it is a classic behavioral deflection. We desperately want to solve the morning problem in the morning because that is when we actually feel the pain of rushing and the anxiety. We refuse to address the nighttime behavior that actually caused the problem.
It's so true. We avoid the root cause.
And it relates heavily to a concept called revenge bedtime procrastination.
Revenge bedtime procrastination? What is that?
It's this phenomenon where people who feel they have no control over their daytime hours refuse to sleep in order to reclaim a false sense of freedom in the dark. They stay up scrolling or watching TV just to feel like they own their time.
Wow, that is incredibly deep and probably describes half the people listening right now.
Myself included sometimes, honestly. But the text forces the focus back to immediate, manageable actions once you do wake up. Things like drinking water, eating a realistic breakfast, moving your body, and adopting a positive mindset.
The source also introduces the idiom rise and shine, and I love this because it implies waking up and starting your day with energy. It is not just rise, which is merely the physical act of standing up.
Right, rising is just verticality.
Exactly. Shine implies an immediate expectation of performance and, societal contribution.
And what the source is ultimately teaching us through this linguistic journey is that a successful morning routine is not about sheer willpower. It is an engineered system.
A system.
Yes. As Amina says in her final thoughts, mornings don't have to be perfect, but small habits can make a big difference. The goal of a routine isn't to turn yourself into a joyless robot. The goal is to entirely remove the complex decision-making process from those first groggy moments.
Right, because your prefrontal cortex hasn't booted up yet.
Exactly. You have no business making decisions about what to eat, what to wear, or whether to hit snooze. The system should make those decisions for you automatically.
So let's trace the arc of what we've uncovered in today's deep dive. We started by examining the universal friction of the alarm clock battle, right? We identified the stark behavioral contrast between Amina's immediate boot-up sequence and Ahmed's reliance on the snooze button.
Yeah, the snooze button credit card.
The credit card, exactly. And we explored the cognitive misfires that happen when we lack a system like pouring orange juice into a bowl of cereal. And we deconstructed the psychological ladder hidden in the vocabulary, moving from isolated habits to a routine, to organization, and ultimately to productivity.
The central takeaway here is that regardless of whether you naturally rise and shine or you constantly battle the feeling that your bed is infinitely warmer than your future, you are not entirely at the mercy of your biology.
You're really not.
You have agency. By adopting just a few of Amina's low-friction, systematic habits, like securing that 2-minute victory of a made bed, drinking water immediately, and refusing to finance your sleep with the high-interest credit card of the snooze button, you can completely alter the architecture of your day.
You shift your morning from a reactive battlefield to a controlled launch pad.
You rewrite the code before the system even fully boots up.
Absolutely. You rewrite the code. But before we let you go, I want to leave you with a final thought to come mull over. Our source material today focused intensely on the exact moment you open your eyes, right? The battle with the alarm, the glass of water, the 2 minutes of making the bed.
Right, the immediate morning.
But consider this. What if the true secret to a flawless morning routine has absolutely nothing to do with the morning itself? What if the perfect morning can only be built by the boundaries you aggressively set the night before?
That's a powerful thought.
It changes the whole game. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We will see you next time.